Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our regular Jnanavarjini session. And interesting topic today that we have Mr. Arun Karthik, who is the CTO, CISO, DPO of his own organization, DPDP Consultancy Privacy Limited. Arun brings 2 decades of experience in terms of cybersecurity, privacy, etc., and worked with enterprise clients across multiple geographies. And he is also AI governance researcher along with cybersecurity and privacy, with the strong, complex regulatory requirements and security requirements, translating them into practical technology-led solutions for the enterprises. They have come out with their own product called a Consent Cockpit, which is a consent management platform. Last month, during our launch of Indian Data Auditor Association back at Bangalore, we had a glimpse of this tool for 15 to 20 minutes. We were really impressed, and we have requested Arun to spare some time to walk us through the tool, and hence we are today here. Without wasting much time further, I would hand over the session floor to Arun. Arun, please go ahead.
Hey, thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you very much for this opportunity to present about our product and the company. So let's, I would like to get the pulse of the audience. So I have a presentation which talks about the different aspects of the company, the idea, the product, and how it fits into the market and such. Any inputs for me around? I'm pretty sure I don't have to cover most of the basic stuff around EPDP and things like that. Can we have some inputs around where we can pivot this discussion around, so people are more interested in the product or how it is structured, things like that? Any inputs, sir? Navi sir or Ramesh sir?
I think from my perspective, I would request Arun sir just to go ahead, because the consent management, as we all know, right? Quite interesting topic. What are all the salient features of your product? How we really brought in that concept here? How easy it would be, right? That entire life cycle, we can talk about it in my perspective.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Okay, so a quick glimpse about the company. Okay, so we are a DPDP Consultancy Private Limited, and we have kind of got this inspiration around the legal language. So I'm being a security professional. So I've been seeing a lot of fragments and disconnects when the security traverses across different personas within an organization. Because predominantly it starts off with the C-level executives, and it moves to the CISO, and from the CISO to the legal executives and the compliance and auditors, and then the technology enterprise level architects and operationalization, and then finally it gets to the offensive security team. But I've been there across the different levels within an enterprise, and I've seen like each of this persona understand this language, the requirements in a very different lenses, and there are fragments that get introduced because there is no synchronization, and there is a unified vision of what's happening across. So that's the whole idea why we thought of solving that problem, because the more fragments that the enterprises introduce within their own teams would be in favor of attackers in the cybersecurity space, or the privacy related risk that the enterprises come across when there is a lot of fragment that get maximized at a data principle or from a user level. Okay, so that's a whole idea behind it, and the inspiration that we have taken is more from the BYD automobile. So they are somebody like security and privacy are two different worlds, right? So the privacy is more around interwoven into the fabric, and the way it is kind of embedded into a running engine, into a digital platform. So the reason why we picked up this inspiration is because we will have to adapt it as a thin layer within the running engine. So more of a ECU or a customization, and every engine is built for different purposes. So we should be in a position to highly customize ourselves so that we exactly adapt to the business requirements. Okay, so that's the inspiration. That's the image that you see on the right. And we believe in translating DPDP in practical, provable operational compliance, which eventually bridges the gap between the paperwork compliance and the fragments that get introduced across the layers into something really operationalizable and measurable. Like it's not a one-time audit at the end of the year, rather you can just log and get the reports anytime you want. So that's the whole idea. Um, to help to visualize the scene, right? So Indian market is more of a very reactive market, and at time when it comes to the data privacy and things like this, and DPDP per se is very new thing within the India where the data privacy has been like we are all getting started off with this, right? We haven't been very diligent about this. So we try to put yourself in a situation like I'm sure most of us as security or legal practitioners who sit on the leadership level. Like if you put yourself in a situation in a 2030 where you have a legal notice that says your organization has to pay a 250 crore penalty, and which one, and because of the data privacy breaches, right? There is an unlawful profiling, cross-border data transfer, children's data being used for training the AI models. Now, the questions on the board is like which AI decision triggered this mess? Where is the consent and lawful basis recorded? Which like the data crossed which border? So these are questions pretty much which would come up, right? And it is the outcome of not really adapting to enterprise level data practices, data privacy practices, and this could be a potential outcome. So what we're trying to do is to bridge the gaps and see how we can fix it, right? So on the boardroom, we see different personas with different mindsets. They all look into the problem from very different lenses. The CISO look into the security dashboard. The auditor looks into the evidences reports. Engineering team looks into the codes and configurations. The general counsel looks into the classes, and the DPO looks into the policies, right? So each one of them looks at it from very different lenses. They all own a part of it, but they're not in a position to comprehensively visualize what's happening across the enterprise landscape. So we have a solution. So the idea behind the whole product is to build a solution in this space where all these personas can synchronously visualize the problem, and each one of them there are different elements that would matter to each of these personas, right? Maybe the DPO want to see only about the data minimization aspects. The general counsel wants to see about are we meeting the SLAs provided by the regulations. So each person would have a different mindset to look into the data. So we intend to package it in a way which would make the most impact to each of these personas, and they're able to associate with it. So what the existing practices is more like a patchwork quilt. So there are different documents lying out there, but nothing is synchronously working together. And that's a predominant challenge across most of the enterprises and around translating this regulations into practical, operationalizable, and measurable things, right? So we need a unified engine on which is customized for that specific business, and it is running all the time, right? So that's what we intend to solve. And when we put all of this together, this could look very simple when we start off with the DPDP per se, but if you apply it for each of the enterprise or different businesses, right? If you put it along with if you want to implement DPDP on a bank, then it's going to intersect closely with the RBI's regulation. Then it can take a different shape altogether. If you put it in a SaaS platform, then probably a different set of regulations. They're a global business and they want to adapt to a different set of calibration for each of the business requirements. So that's also an embedded DNA of our product. So the product incorporates multiple regulations, standards, and frameworks, whichever the enterprise has to adapt to in conjunction with the DPDP. And we can it's just a click away. You just need to select which regulation standards apply to your organization. And then we build the specific rules for your company. And then we have connectors across the enterprise. So when I say connectors, it connects across the cloud, application, the CI/CD pipelines, anywhere across your digital infrastructure. We have multiple connectors, and all of the data is consolidated in one unified engine, and then it helps visualize this. I would like to jump slightly into the business drivers of this, and then get back to the technological explanations. So this is a crucial period where so DPDP is moving on one side. We all know about the regulations and the timeline that we have at this point, but this is an important period where we are we are evolving alongside the AI. So in AI, the evolution of AI is mostly around building intelligence, right? So the intelligence, as of now, gathering information from the publicly available resources is, industries, the businesses are racing to get that done, and they've almost done it. And moving forward, they will potentially try to get the proprietary information from different businesses to build their own intelligence, or they get to the level of data principals or data subjects to get personal information, which they might use for building more intelligence. And those are possible entry points that these businesses are trying to chase and raise. And this could put a lot of people on risk. So which is a fundamental human right violation. And moving forward, this could take to a more serious consequence of people's data not handled in the right way. So it's a crucial period where AI is intersecting with data privacy regulation in India, and it's going to gain more traction across. And as we all know, the regulations are tightening up across the globe in terms with the AI and also from a data privacy regulation. And the DNA of the product is we are building the engine that starts off with the DPDP in India and eventually scale across the global regulations, which can eventually become a global product. So the design of the product is, so I talked about the calibration for different businesses within India, which works alongside the different intersecting regulations within India and also the frameworks and standards. But when it comes to the global wedge, we are trying to build the cartridges. So every regulation will become a cartridge. You just have to pick and choose what is required. And these intelligence are inbuilt within the product. And all you have to do is select which one applies to you, where do you come from, which business are you into, and then the rules and checklist are automatically compiled by our product. And yeah, from business landscape, as we all know, there are different firms approaching this problem from different lenses. There are privacy firms, there are legal firms, AI governance, enterprise risk management, customer trust and loyalty. So all of this companies are trying to get into this market space from different lenses, and we are trying to position ourselves as someone who can do it all. And be versatile enough to address the diverse requirements of all of these personas. And yeah, the market signals are really strong, and penalties are huge drivers to this. I'll take a pause here. Is there any questions that you might have? Please feel free to raise up. I'll continue. Please stop me if you have any questions alongside.
Yes.
Yes, sure. And talking about the design of this product, okay, so as we were talking about security, if I have to give you an example, right, from a security lens, if I can go and tell encrypt the database, and that's a security practice that you need to implement, which stops there. But privacy goes far beyond that in terms with what data is stored within the database and how is your application code ethically handling it? Are you having appropriate validation for each one of them? So it goes way too deep into the fabric. Right. It's like, so we come up with this idea as the tailored a la carte solution. When we go buy a blazer from a ready-made store, the most common thing is we try to fit ourselves into a size that is closest to us and then believe it is fitting us well. Right. So that's the most common thing. But privacy may not really make sense trying to put us into something available and adapt to what is available. So we believe in customizing it for the business, and that's the DNA. And second, when it comes to a buffet, if you go buy a whole big product and they're going to promise, put a big box in front of you and say it's going to do all of it, and we pay for a huge set of requirements, rather we consume a very little, very little features that we would probably be consuming, right? So we want to break both of that. So we believe in a tailored a la carte solution. So we don't want to, we're trying to break the myth of what's happening across the security products that are out there. And we are trying to build this as a solution which is highly customizable and for your own business. So if you're a business that where you want the DPDP, ISO, and you're running on AWS and you're using a Java tech stack, all you have to do is select all of these things and then configure the engine, like the one-time setup process, and the engine is automatically calibrated to your business needs, right? So that's the tuning that we do for for each of the business, and that makes the product whole customizable. And many a times, the businesses end up paying for SUV. Probably they might just need a hatchback to solve that problem, which could potentially be unveiled only when we get on surface, right? So and they don't have to really pay for the SUV without the necessity. The product so what you see on the left is a regulation, and what you see on the right is technology. So we are kind of a bridge between the technology and the regulations. The regulatory languages speak open-ended language, which is difficult or not provides a unified way where the technology people look at the problem. The technology people, it is like the LHS equal to RHS. We believe in solutions, formulas, and here it is about perceptions, perspectives. So we try to blend these two extreme ends and then try to build up with our own logics, which can contextualize for every business and the environment. As you saw, if we're going to say cross-border data transfer, how does it apply to an AWS infrastructure? Okay, so that's a problem for us to solve. So what are the possible services in AWS that will lead to cross-border data transfer? So we try to break down that higher level statements into something contextualized and more operationalizable checkpoints within different arenas. It could be application, source code, infrastructure, all of this. And we have come up with solutions that can then tie these two extreme ends together. So the whole idea is about the classes to controls, control to system to logs, and the dashboard, and which could be unifiedly visualized by all of the different personas who speak different languages and having different views of the whole problem statement. So that's a high level about how the product is structured and designed. And then the first product that we have launched is Consent Cockpit, which is a major portion of the DPDP in itself, right? So we try to, as a startup, we wanted to first solve this problem. So we built this product called Consent Cockpit. And it's the reason behind naming this is more like the cockpit, the flight's cockpit that has a unified view of all the complex signals happening across the globe. So the data that keeps flowing across enterprises is as complex as that, and we wanted to make it very simple and then visualize it synchronously. So that's a whole thing. So that goes behind the name of the product as well. Okay. So the product basically does all of this, the basic capabilities that are required by the DPDP regulation itself. The notice and consent management, the consent capture, preferences, withdrawal, these are grievances. And this fits as the thin fabric within existing businesses. So the user can have any platform where they want to interact with their application. And this Consent Cockpit sits as a platform in between the existing running engine, so which is the business or the existing systems that are currently functioning, which does not have appropriate the record of processing, notice consent, and all of that. We kind of introduce this in between as a thin fabric, and we are a overlay application. So we do not, when it comes to a customer, they do not have to have any complex integration pieces. This is a very lean implementation. They have to just copy paste some codes that we are trying to provide to them. It's more of SDKs and API powered setup. From a differentiator perspective, it is contextual by design. So it is contextualized for each of the businesses, each of the environment by itself. And it is self-calibrating and adaptive to any business requirements. And it is purpose-based, is again part of the design. So the notices and consent that we collect is sliced up based on the purpose, which is again what the regulation claims or requires us to do. And enforcement ready. So as of now, the Consent Cockpit as a fabric, which can enable the backend systems of the potential customers to consume our information and get the privacy or the consent related information processed by their end. And there is a subsequent version of the Consent Cockpit, which is called Consent Enforcer, is coming up, which can directly implement the changes on their backend systems. Okay, so it's enforcement ready, and we are in the way of working out the solution. We also have the most sophisticated solution coming up, which is the data lineage solution, because the bottom line, So the whole problem is data lineage. When I say data lineage, it is all about how the data flow with complex enterprise landscapes, right? So the data PII can be in a backup, it can be in a log, it can be residing in a replicas of the databases. It can go across different spaces, and it is always associated with an identity, a person or a system that is interacting and creating and accessing the data, right? So there is a data or a lineage related solution, which is the matured version of this product, which is also coming up. As of now, we try to quickly adapt to the market requirements and solve what is just enough for businesses to adapt to record of processing and the notice consent aspects. Okay. Yeah, so I was talking about, so let's assume you're using a mobile app which is collecting your personal information. So we have introduced consent cockpit as just a quick or a overlay application which travels along your web application journey. You have this always, and then it can explain you every consent that is coming up, what is the purpose that the data is collected for, and if there are any requests that are raised by the users, what is the status of it, what is the grievance that was submitted, and the metrics around what data has been shared, and what is collected. All of this information are unifiedly integrated to the existing platform. This would be very seamless experience. So that's something that we targeted. The user should not feel any difficulties in accessing this, and it should be, and the law also claims that it has to be easily accessible by the user for any changes. So we came up with this idea. I can show you much detailed version when I show the demo to you. That this one thing that we targeted so that it is more aligned with the data principles requirements. Okay. And this is a different view. So the integration comes in two different perspectives, one for the data principles and the other one for the data fiduciaries, right? So this is the fiduciary view of the data. So there are different areas that the user provides consents, withdraws, and each of these are captured as a dashboard, and matrices are gathered within the fiduciary application dashboard, which is called the command center, and where you see all of this statistics of data, like what is the consent provided, what is the DSARs, and what is the SLAs. And these are all, so every possible dimension to it. When I say that if the SLA is 30 days, like tomorrow, there is some change in SLA. So the companies, we provide the platform to be flexible enough for the fiduciaries to configure their own SLAs. And then they can customize their own notices. Anything across the board is customizable. I'll also show you that in detail when I share the demo. And we spoke about the integration simplicity. It requires few embedded the thing, and predominantly it is SDK based integration. It's just a copy paste of some code snippets into the platform, which makes it very simple, and it's webhook and API, which is highly adaptive in nature, and the data gets automatically synchronized across. So we don't want to add any amount of complexity in terms to our customers where they want to adapt a solution as this. Okay, that's the whole idea behind coming up with the overlay kind of a concept. And I'll talk to you a bit in detail about that in a bit. And also, as we're talking about, it can adapt to any business requirements. So as just a click away around what controls that you choose within the platforms, right? What regulations or standards that you pick and choose, the controls are going to be calibrated as per their requirements. So for example, if they're going to say, you saw the analogy from the car engine calibration that we just saw, right? People could select AWS, Java, any combinations that is applicable to the business, and also the industry that they come from. So we pick and choose what is applicable to them. I can give you an example. If there is a legal hold kind of a scenario, right? The data erasure should be held. So these are exceptional corner cases that could come up in specific businesses. Let's say banking, for example. This could be a serious requirement for people to retain the data and not exactly align with the DPDP. And it also says that the DPDP by itself says that so where in these situations, the R-based law takes a higher precedence. So we have factors of like we have solutions that can adapt to these kind of complex or corner cases that may come through. Here what you see is the end-to-end flow. So you have the DSR, withdrawal, grievance, process actions, evidence vaults, and the different channels of communications, all of this embedded in one place. Which would eventually enable faster DPDP readiness. And then it would really take less than a week's time to get our product integrated and make it operationalizable into existing businesses, provided we have the collaboration with the engineering team. It's that seamless. Okay. With that said, I'll take a pause here. If you have any questions, I'm happy to address, or else I'll get into the demo.
Team, if there is no question, probably Arun can give us the demo.
Sure.
Yeah, go for the demo. We have
Yeah.
understood the principles you have
Excellent.
followed.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Arun, please go ahead. Yeah.
Sure. So this is the data fiduciary platform. Okay, so this is the consent cockpit, and we have built a demo application. It's more of a matrimony application that we have built to just show how our application sits or integrates with this platform. So what you see here is a cookie consent manager, cookie consent banner, and then this is a subtle difference between the global products consider cookie as the consent manager, the core consent manager, but here in the Indian regulation there is a subtle difference in the way we talk about the consents. But we also support this cookie consent management. So this would take care of the user activity in an online digital platform. Okay. So you have these options to select and choose what is required for a business or you want to enable and all of that. So this is basically coming from our platform. I'll show you how it integrates. So there's a home screen. The consent banner, what you see in the portal is customizable here. So any change that you apply here will automatically get reflected in this platform. So that's the way we integrate it. The design and schemes that you see here are directly coming from here. Okay. So whatever, so if I have to say the list of consents, right? So it's functional, analytical, performance. If I want to add more categories, I'll have to just go here and configure what's applicable. And even in terms of the text that has to be put in to the notice. So whatever you have configured here comes up there, right? And you have the version that has to be managed. I think so. These are explicit line items that the regulation calls for, and we have it here. Okay. So it's that versatile. All you have to do is click and choose, and now this enables even a legal practitioner to make an application level configuration change. You just have to configure these things, and it comes to localization, and you have a localization validator. You can select the regions, whichever language you want to put in. You can validate the content, and then there is also an approval flow, which I'll show you, and then it can be promoted to the end user. Or when I say end user, to the platform directly gets integrated or applied here. Okay. So, and we collect the logs. So the logs unanimously cover what the users have accepted and what is the version that they have accepted, what is the visitor ID, and we do not use store any PII information within our portal. Rather, we have identifiers to the information or the user profiles within the specific platform. Okay. And the cookie policies, as you see here, again, it is highly customizable, whatever you may want to write up here and different languages that you want to put in. All of this can be done here, which gets reflected. So that's the cookie aspects, cookie management aspect. And the purpose-based data collection, right? So now for a logged in user, so let's assume, so these are things which happens outside, like the digital activity of the user happens at a cookie level, which can happen to both the non-logged in and a logged in user. Like now assume, let's take a user who has created a matrimony profile and is a logged in user within the application platform. So we are logging in to the platform as a sample user. And here it exactly comes like when a matrimony user creates their own profile, so they provide a lot of their personal information and then create their user details. So the platform travels along with them, as I showed in the examples. It can travel along with them. It indicates the hook points around what information they're collecting, what is the purpose that they're using, and all of that, and which is all captured in the consent cockpit, which you see here. And this is the cockpit. This is going to capture everything around what user has approved, what they have accepted, what is overall status. So this is not a part of the actual platform itself. So this is an overlay application. So anywhere you traverse, this overlay is going to exist, and this is directly loaded from our application, the backend application that you see here. So which makes the integration very simple for our end customers. All they have to do is copy paste some code snippets from our platform, and it's going to work as this. I'll show you where it comes from as well. Okay. So the purpose-based collection. So now the user want to define the purpose of what and why they're collecting this information for. Every business is different, so they can just say, I want to collect it for advertisement, and then create a registry of this, right? And you see the advertisement section adding in here, and eventually the same would add up here. It takes a bit to load, take a couple of minutes, but what you see here is, so here you get the additional whatever configurations purposes that we added here will add up in the pipeline in this section. Okay. And you can define, so again, any business, you can define anywhere, any marketing or the requirements or the purpose that is applicable to that business. They can add their own version to it, and it is all recorded. So every user, what are the notices that are sent to the users within this section? So what are the languages that you want to support? So anything you want against around the application requirements has to be configured here, which directly gets reflected there. And also the deployment history of which version is currently live in the production and what is the user response to it. So which version, which user has accepted, which version is withdrawn. All of this you get to see in one pane of glass. Likewise, you also see the DSR section, DSR and grievance section, which is mapped here. If the user has raised a escalation or an issue or complaint or request to withdraw, this directly can be configured here, right? So if it requires an email verification, it requires an acknowledgement, a rights module, or a timeline that they want to respond to this, anything can be defined as per the regulation. Like if the product has to be put into to a European market where they have a different verification window, absolutely acceptable to do it. They can calibrate it for their requirements. And I told about the integration, right? So this is a piece of integration. So the businesses just have to copy paste the script into their application platform, and the integration is done. And the rest of it is going to load from our platform directly onto their site. And the these are forms. Again, the request forms that the end user need to submit can be designed here. We have the templates, you have the language available, the CSS styling, everything. And all you have to do is, once it is all done, just copy paste the script and put it in the platform, and the integration is done. So likewise, every bit is customizable. The grievance forms, and you see the request that you have received. If the user submits a request on the platform, this is how the request gets registered within the portal, with the date created, regulation, and all of that. And you see the workflows associated. And okay, workflow is another important piece. So within an enterprise landscape, if the legal notice has to flow or publicly published in their website, right? There has to be a series of approvers. In some cases, it goes to the DPO, it goes to the legal counsel. So here, the workflows can also be automated. So we can define our own workflow depending on how the organization and the reviewers are aligned. So we can just set up the list of emails and personas who want to review this consent, and it automatically goes through the approval hierarchy. Once the final approval is done, it gets published in the website. And this is the cockpit settings. So the cockpit that you see in the application. So if you want to change the styling of this to match your application or your website's requirements, absolutely available to change, modify the look and feel of it, which is all configurable within this section. And emails, for user-related emails, again, this section allows notifications that need to be sent to the data principals and subjects are available here. The contents are customizable, language support. You have all the languages required, and then the content could be modified as per the requirements. And the notifications can be sent across. And we do not collect any personal information across the journey. And only for this emailing notification, we make an ad hoc request to the API. We trigger the email and then we delete the email IDs, the ones that we collect for the notification purposes. So with all that put together, we have the analytics engine, which can tell you the metrics of what has happened over past few, I mean, for different timelines, you can get to collect the information. What is the record of processing? How many DSRs? What is the withdrawal count looks like? And all of this is consolidated in our analytics section. And we have a complaint checklist based on geography. Like this comes from a global organization. It is more applicable to different geographies that you want to apply this. I can also walk you through that section, but this is for global businesses. The third-party processor, if the application is being the data fiduciary uses a third-party processor, and then we can all register it, and we get to their level again. If a user raised a deletion request to the data fiduciary, and the request eventually goes to the data processor or third-party processor that the fiduciary is associated with. So that level of control can also be achieved here. So you can, so this is basically an API which is built for the third-party processor to consume and perform the deletion or the correction operations. And this is a data fiduciary view. So this is where the integration and configurations are all done. So these are the one-line integration as you see. And also from a TLS certificate perspective, right? So then we are kind of intercepting the traffic that is coming to their HTTPS domain. So we're intercepting that. So we configure a public key of the website for us to intercept the request and then perform the modifications required for their business and then forward it to the backend systems. We also have an interesting domain scanner, which is basically an outside-in scanner. So what it does is if you just configure this domain name for the business and then just perform a scan, it can scan the publicly accessible information. So what it can get you is if as the law says, the DSR should always be available on your web application. It should be easily accessible by the user, things like that, right? So this can directly scan the external websites. Like if you just say Amazon.com here, it's going to scan Amazon.com domains and then see if this information are directly accessible and available to them. Okay, it's an external scanner that we have built in. And this is the summary of the whole thing that we have gathered across. So the scanner output says the banner region selection is potentially not compliant. So because we are using our test domain, it is showing up, this one is not compliant because this is hosted in Europe. But you see the other matrices across the board, like from the different sections, what's the data collected, what is the overall status looks like in the analytics section. Okay, so this is a complete snapshot of what user has configured in the matrimony portal is what they get to see here as a data fiduciary. I would also take a moment. So these are, okay, this is the existing consent cockpit platform altogether. I would also like to talk about the extended features that are coming up along the way, which would also be relevant to the DPDP regulation. Because, for example, if a child's data should not be used for processing any information. So that's explicitly called out. So if an enterprise comes from that background and they want to do it, how do they achieve it? Or cross-border data transfer should be disallowed. So again, they need a closer control of the infrastructure landscape. Right? So we have that support as well. So I'm walking you through this at the end because I didn't want to reflect the flow of it. So we covered what the consent cockpit is all about, and I'm just sharing you what's coming up for like how a business gets on board into our platform, right? So this is a very first
Karthik,
yeah.
I have one. This is oriented towards helping the business people. Am I right?
Yeah.
So now
Yeah,
it is an independent application to be used by a fiduciary.
Fiduciaries, yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, consent manager is also being developed by Government of India, where it will be oriented towards helping the principals. So, as a principal, I have a soft version of my this one available, and how it can integrate with your business. This one,
Okay.
because that is not yet to come. Those principles need to be recognized, and how it can integrate with that kind of software or whatever you call it is going to be this one connected.
That's a great question, sir. So there are two parts to it. So let's say, let's take the same example. So now there is a user who is getting onboarded into a matrimony platform. Okay. So matrimony provider will purchase our product and then they will put it into their system at the back end because they want to manage all of the customers' requirements around data processing and such, which they get to see in this platform. Okay. And there is also a user element. The data principal should be provided with an option to modify his consents and transparent notices and all of that should come through. So that comes through the cockpit here. So if I am a subscriber to the matrimony as a data principal, I get to see this where I can request for corrections, erasure, and all of those requests can be raised by me within the platform as this. Okay. So the two parts to it. So this, if matrimony.com purchases our product, okay, all the customers would potentially see this coming up in their website, in the web platform or in the mobile platform, where they can request for data correction and whatever is required, and the provider can configure whatever is applicable, the laws, notices, consents. They can customize it for their business. And now, if there is going to be probably, let's assume a bank is going to come back to us, they will have a different set of configurations, which can also be done using the same solution because just that the purpose, notices, all of this are going to be different. So that's the whole reason behind we made it a completely customizable platform. So you put in your set of requirements or configurations within the platform, and we make it available on the other side. So this is the part of onboarding or adaptability that we embedded into the platform.
I think your move is a very sensible move because principal won't pay much, so you have concentrated on businesses, which I appreciate. But this one is still how you can integrate the inputs given by the principal in his consent manager equipment to yours. He cannot spend so much of time to understand your thing and then learn. If he has to learn like this, so many thousands of dealers are there, each one will have his own method. How it should automatically integrate then as it is possible. Otherwise, it will be very heavy for me to learn your this information as well as that and how it integrates, whether it is following up or not. That will be a very challenging situation for you. Though your domain is fantastic, if this domain were to be concentrated by in the law itself, that would have been beneficial to you. Now, law talks about consent manager itself to be depending on the principal's requirements. Now, principal's requirement given in another app, how it get integrated. Now, each aspect has to be looked into. I think that will be a very challenging situation in the days to come for you. You have to be very ready for that kind of thing for your product to become saleable, I hope.
True, sir. Because the requirement itself is split into two halves. So one is to address the data principles requirement, and the second half is data fiduciary to take care of those requirements. Okay, so that's it. So we try to balance those. So because we cannot expect a data principal to understand so much of technology or regulation, we want to keep it simple, and that's why if I am a matrimony user for this in this example's conversation sake, I can just go click this button and I can see the basic information that I need from the platform. If I have a concern, I can raise it from here only, and then say, I don't want this data. I want to raise a privacy complaint. So I have made it, so we have tried to make it as simple for the principal to get onboarded. They don't have to understand much complex things. They can just do it at a click of a button. They'll just click, okay, delete my personal data and then submit a request. And we will do all the heavy lifting on the back end from our side. So that's the way we thought of an approach.
But still, there's a huge gap because the people who approach as principals are versatile. They may not be very good in their technological aspects. So that is a challenge you need to face. And I want one more question. How you are integrating your processes into this?
Yeah, we have a workflow engine that supports, and for the whole business, just a second, I'll take a look. So we have this workflow engine, right? So every business comes up with their own workflows and their own different personas. So you can just create a workflow here. So you can just give it a title, approval, workflow, and then add who is the escalation officer, who is the first person to respond, who is the one to validate, and you can just add their emails and the SLAs and timelines within which they need to approve it. Okay, so that's how the tickets get logged into our systems, and we have the workflow associated with it. Let's say the first request goes to the DPO, and DPO want to assign to the operations team. You can just map it to the operations and then build a workflow for their company's requirements. So that is automated here.
This becomes a challenging issue there also to integrate with your processors, because processors are not at all, if they are fiduciary themselves, okay, 50% of the problem is over. If they are otherwise small players or players in other fields who are not compliant with the DPTP Act, there will be a huge problem for that kind of integration also. So both at the entry level as well as further processing level, you will have challenges, I hope. You need to do a lot of work on this.
Absolutely, sir. So we'll have to get it to the market and then evolve alongside. I definitely understand there are going to be unforeseen challenges there. But the dynamics of how we built this is to make it versatile enough for different business needs. Like if say there is going to be a third party, if they get the request and they're not going to do anything about it, then it's going to be a problem on the fiduciary. So these are areas or gaps which has to be dealt with through the MOUs. But if you have to really solve the problem on in the processor side, they will have to be our customers eventually. So we can't get to that level. So these are thin line challenges that we'll have to evolve over a period. But as of now, we felt this is a starting point. And as I was mentioning earlier, right, the data lineage is the bottom line to the whole problem. Lineage means every nook and corner of data within your organization should be managed by us. Only then we can provide 100% accuracy in what's happening. Because we cannot get to that level, and industries are not ready to invest at that scale, unlike the European market, right? So in India, this is a lean version that we can take, can provide a defensible DPDP compliance in this case. So that's the reason we want to pivot at this level and then say we'll start off here. Also, as a startup, any leading businesses may be hesitant to share all their PI information with us, and then they won't let us take that much of control and they may not trust us. So we thought, okay, we will slice our offerings. So this is a primary offering that we're coming up with, and we have the mature state solutions as well. But later on, once we are able to generate some revenue for ourselves.
But I appreciate your strategy to enter the market from the fiduciary line rather than with the principal. I hope you will do well. Okay.
Thank you.
You have answered my question beautifully. Thank you. Because I'm not good at, I'm a layman as far as technology is concerned. I'm trying to learn something and trying to ask you questions. Thank you.
Absolutely. This is going to be a fantastic collaboration. So we have come across a decade in the last decade in the IT industry. There was only developers were different and QA was different. So that shuffling happened. So in that last 10 years, cloud has changed that collaboration. Now we are all working together. And now this decade, AI decade is going to change that dynamics. Now auditors, lawyers, all of us are going to sit in one table and have a discussion, and that's going to be much more interesting. So that's something exciting I'm looking forward to, learning from each other and exchange of informations. Let's see how it comes through, sir.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, is there a question?
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Myself is Bundeya Adepur from Mumbai. The part from demo, what you have shown, the consent cockpit,
Yes.
is it only for Indian environment, Indian businesses to need the DPDP, or is it global usable platform?
Look at the question again, sir. So the crux of the whole consent thing, except for the language, it's used in the European regulation, European or the US regulation, and India. There are subtle language differences in the definition of consent and what exactly technically it relates to. So except for that difference, it can be used across the globe, because the bottom line to any privacy regulation is taking consent from the users, do lawful processing, have the data flows measurable, and if there is a customer requirement to remove or erase the data, you will have to be in a position to do it and have a record of processing. It's more like access card. So the data moving across should be registered in the platform. So that's how we look at it. So that's it. Any global regulations can be addressed using this platform.
So is it primarily for the consent management only, or to comply the entire regulation like GDPR or DPDP or the American regulations?
Yes, it is. I mean, that's what I'm trying to explain. So it is more like the foundation of consent is same across the geographies, except for some timelines are different, the intersecting laws are different, and things like that. So the reason we want to calibrate a product like this is, I'll show you what exactly I'm talking about. Okay. So now we have this compliance section within the platform. So now the user has all the leeway to go select whichever regulations apply to them. So if they just select DPDP, and it's going to work for DPDP. If you want a combination of DPDP and GDPR and ISO and PCI, if that's applicable to the business, you just have to select this. And this connectors that we are building will take care of what controls or scans that are applicable to each of these regulations. Okay. So the customization part is going to happen automatically, handled by our engine.
That means is your platform going to help the company whether they are compared with the CCPA and also ISO 27001, or how it is going to be made the requirements of these legal requirements as the standards and other frameworks? Is it common sense, or when you are showing certain regulations, certain standards, and certain frameworks, a company may not need all these, you know. The
Correct.
PCI data, for example, need only for the company which has holding a card data.
Yeah, true. So we have this option. So we want to, so we are trying to build a platform. It's like you buy a car, you drive it on the desert, you drive it on the hills, doesn't matter, right? So we were building this engine for any business. And it is whatever regulations are applicable to you, you pick and choose it from here. And we will harmonize this regulatory requirements, and we will contextualize it to our business. Okay. So that's the reason we are supporting different regulations, multiple regulations. If you have only one you want, you pick one you want. And if you're integrating with your AWS infrastructure, we contextualize it for AWS. If you're putting it across Azure, we contextualize it for Azure, right? So that's the way the system is versatilely adaptive design that we have made. Okay. It can fit in across geographies, across industries, across enterprise, across businesses. So it can, and across standards and frameworks. So anything that you want to change across the board, we're going to adapt to it. That answers your question, sir.
So finally, what I want to know is, by implementing this platform or by my company adopting this platform, can you just list out what are the regulations, DPDP clauses I'm able to comply? In my company, if I subscribe to your platform and implement it in full speed, what are the DPDP regulations I'm adhering to? See, finally, I am auditor, so many of the customers, they are now looking for how I'm able to make a DPDP. Sometimes we tell that ISO 27701 may give some weightage, not complete, because DPDP is a regulation law, whereas ISO 277 is a standard. By implementing this platform, how a company can demonstrate that which provisions of the DPDP I am complying with.
Okay, is a question around what are the exact legal requirements or clauses that I'm complying with by implementing this? Is that the right understanding?
No, Mr. Arun, DPDPA law and its rules require certain actions to be taken, or some complaint measures to be implemented by company.
Yeah.
Take example of that matrimony platform, matrimony.com. So matrimony.com subscribe to your platform. How matrimony.com can demonstrate the regulator, the board of the board. These are the regulations I'm able to fulfill. Is that provision available?
Yes, it is. So basically, the mapping between the exact legal clauses versus what we achieved out of implementing this platform, right? So which exact
Exactly.
regulation this meets, that's a mapping that you're
Right.
looking for, right?
Right.
Yes, it is supported, sir.